Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And our favorite subject this month is Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Well, yeah, my favorite subject often is Disney, because I actually do like Disney a lot of times, just not lately. So yeah, we got some more Disney stuff for you.
So this is coming from Theme Park Tourist. Now, Theme Park Tourist has over 500,000 Facebook followers. It is a very sizable Disney theme park fan site. They cover
a lot of things.
They do cover Disney. A lot of other than just, but it is mostly Disney and Universal, but they do cover Disney extensively. And they're not happy with Galaxy's Edge. And this is coming days before Galaxy's Edge in Florida opens up to the public. And people are already kind of like not terribly impressed. We've heard from friends of ours who've been down there for the pass holder previews, and they're kind of like, it's okay.
They said it was good, but it was, it's for what it is. You wouldn't go very often.
It's okay. So this is not a good look. Disney bet big on Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It might have been a billion dollar blunder. So this is coming from Theme Park Tourist with 500,000 Facebook followers.
It's a pretty big theme park
500,000.
I just want to point out real quick, though, a lot of the stuff we were saying earlier on and no one else is saying it. Now everybody's saying it,
I know, they were like...
it's safe to say it. They're all saying it. We said it when it wasn't safe,
exactly
people.
It.
We knew we were putting our status at risk. We still took the risk. So anyway, go ahead.
Though Star Wars Galaxy's Edge has been open since May, no theme park land debut has been as hotly anticipated as the East Coast version of the land in Hollywood Studios. While the hype train has been rolling on for a few years, Bob Iger famously implied that Disney didn't even need to advertise it.
We've been pulling this out for a while now.
Yeah, Bob Iger basically said he's just going to have to say, hey, Galaxy's Edge is open, and the money's going to pour in.
He kind of basically
said that. That's how arrogant Disney is. And we're going to talk about Disney's arrogance, and in particular, I think Bob Iger's arrogance, and what could have actually been a Galaxy's Edge that fans would have preferred.
Right.
That was focused on the original trilogy, and Bob Iger's arrogance messed that up. So now they're looking at Galaxy's Edge with additional scrutiny in Florida. Okay, so here's their bullet points as to why it might be a billion-dollar blunder.
Yes.
The land is the most expensive ever built at Disney World.
Yes, they've touted that repeatedly.
Yeah, so they're saying that it is cost $1 billion to bring it to Hollywood Studios. So it's actually $2 billion, and then whatever the R&D is, because they built one in Disneyland that's virtually identical, and then whatever the R&D is, and then in Disneyland or in Disney World, in addition to that, they're building an overpriced hotel, which we did another video on that. So it's really adding up.
Well, that too, and the fact you have to understand at Disney World, they are doing so many different projects right now. We have a Tron coaster coming to the Magic Kingdom. We have Guardians of the Galaxy attraction coming into Epcot. We have Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. It's also coming to Hollywood Studios,
which got pushed back.
Right, and we have several hotels that they're building and a bunch of stuff. There's a whole mess of projects going on right now at all the parks. So it's not cheap for that, and then throwing this in on top of it.
Yeah, so I think Disney's overextending themselves, and then they're not hitting the numbers. And now, that whole thing with the SEC, who knows what's going on? They might not actually have the money they think they have. The company's single biggest theme land investment in history. Okay, so while impressive, it's now becoming a concern because Galaxy's Edge hasn't done well thus far at Disneyland. So let's read this and comment on this. Disney has blamed everything from its own annual pass holder blackout dates to the delayed opening of Star Wars Rise of the Resistance.
But I do agree both of those play into it. I really do.
I think they do, but I think there's a general lack of interest.
I think
from
it's the apathy, which we keep saying. Yep. You might be mad people hate Star Wars. These people that are like mega fans, you're not a fan if you hate Star Wars, but hating and loving something are strong emotions. Apathy is the killer right there.
Apathy is the mind killer. The fact is that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge hasn't exactly been the traffic boon for Disneyland as many thought it would be, and though speculation was that annual pass holders would flood this land in August when the majority of blackouts were lifted, thus far that has not been the case. With the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run attraction still averaging 30-minute wait times.
30 waits! Oh my god!
So, even though they lifted the blackout dates, the people are still not coming.
30-minute waits. Oh my gosh. We normally go to Walt Disney World, and I can't imagine 30-minute waits for things. Oh, that would be glorious. Anyway, continue.
That would be. While conventional wisdom might state that since Disney World typically draws a larger crowd than Disneyland, more guests will visit this version of Galaxy's Edge. But this could be an issue as, number 3, Walt Disney World attendance is down.
It is.
So earlier the month, Disney confirmed that the attendance is down, and though Disney blamed the attendance crash on Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, saying that guest surveys suggested many were deferring their visits to Disney World until after it opened, this land wasn't a draw on the West Coast. It might not be one on the East Coast.
Well, I do think that people are waiting. And I think they're waiting till both rides are open. I think if they're going to see a busier time, it's going to be when they have it all open. Because why are you going to spend so much money to go down and see half of a park? You know what I mean? Because there's a whole other section that isn't open with that other ride.
Right.
And you're not going to do that. Now, I have a friend who's there right now at Walt Disney World. And she even said to me, she was so surprised that the crowds were anywhere near as bad as she thought they were going to be. And she was very happy about this because it's, I guess, her first trip with her family. And they were so happy because the wait times, have still been higher because it's Walt Disney World, but not what it normally is. And she's like, oh, it's nowhere near as bad as I thought.
Yeah, which is good because that means she'll probably go back. But we've had... other people say, hey, they've gone to Disney when it was unexpectedly crowded, and they're like, there's no way in hell I'm going back.
Well, I talked to a lady who lives a half an hour away, and she says they barely ever go because it's too crowded, and they don't know how to get on to anything. And they live half an hour away part of the year. Go ahead.
Yeah, so now they're talking about how the reviews from Star Wars fans have been mixed. Again, the land, it's just a big, empty, spacey shopping mall.
The reviews when you're allowed to see honest ones. Because the reviews that we keep seeing on like the Disney blog is, all these comments about the park, and it's like nauseating, ridiculously positive comments. Continue.
Though we enjoyed visiting Galaxy's Edge and found the Falcon ride to be fun, some guests, particularly self-described Star Wars fans on social media, have had mixed feelings about the new land, especially the setting of Batuu, which is an all-new planet. And we're going to talk about this.
Yeah, there's a reason.
How this was not supposed to be the case, which is an all-new planet not seen or mentioned in any of the Star Wars films, and though there are plenty of familiar characters and ships to be found, some said that without iconic locations like Endor, Tatooine, or the Death Star, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge won't have the same pull or longevity that the other lands have had, like Harry Potter, where they have,
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this here in a minute.
This is important because, before we, continue, so you listen to the rest of the video, Disney originally planned this to be an original trilogy,
right? An
original trilogy park, and Bob Iger changed it at the last minute.
And I have a transcript talking to an Imagineer here shortly. We'll read that to you in a bit.
All right, so number 5, Disney's Hollywood Studios has been banking on this new land as part of its reinvention. It's like a third of the park.
Yeah, I don't like their new logo. I really hate that new logo. I don't like it
that much.
That's their new logo. They just started. When was that? Because you were there for that.
It was the 30th. They unveiled it.
Oh, that's right. On the 30th of May. Because you were there for the unveiling and the parade. Yeah. And I just not a fan of the logo. Yeah,
so Toy Story Land is nice and Mickey and Minnie's Railway looks cute, but the big draw is Star Wars. Because it is. It's like a third of the park now.
I'm actually kind of excited to see Mickey and Minnie, even though I do miss the great movie ride. I loved it. I wish they just updated that and left it.
I think how they did that was bad. They didn't even give people time to say goodbye.
Same with Universal Energy.
They're just like, oh yeah, it's closing in a month. Not, like, if this was Disneyland, that's one thing. Disneyland never shuts down the classic rides. They run them and run them and run them. I mean, they still have Mr. Toad. But Disney World, like, people need time to get there. You need to be like, we're closing it next year. You've still got 6 or 8 months to get here.
And D23 is coming this weekend, which stay tuned for news on that on both piratesandprincesses.net, which is my blog, and also on here. But they could do another thing where they're announcing they're going to change something and boom, it's going to be done. Gone.
Yeah.
They do this all the time.
They do it all the time. I'm looking at Journey to Imagination.
I know. I just wish they put it back to the original with Dreamfinder.
That will never happen because there's not a Dreamfinder movie.
That's it, because it's not IP enough. Go ahead.
Yep. So, okay, so they said that it's going to be infrastructure to handle the larger crowds.
They were going to be doing I will say this. The Hollywood Studios was planning some kind of expansion either way. It just happened that they ended up getting Star Wars. They were originally talking about doing Cars Land and Hollywood Studios. So Hollywood Studios was planning an expansion, and then they used Toy Story Land for sure, and then they were going to do something else, and now they went with Star Wars. Continue.
Yeah, so there are concerns facing executives and investors around the new land that have to do with internal issues. There are some external factors that could affect the new land. There's talk of another recession. That means people are not going to have money for vacations like they did.
Well, they're saying short-term recession, but just hearing the word recession makes people panic.
Yeah, and Disney needs to be panicked because they're spending more money and jacking rates up as American families might potentially be looking at a loss in disposable income. They're not talking Great Recession, but just recession in general. People are like, oh, I don't have an extra $5,000.
You just hear that word and you immediately say it could cost families about $1,000 more a year. Yeah. And people, like $1,000 more for a couple of years pays for Disney, a trip to somewhere. So Well, it used to, now it doesn't. But I'm just saying, it's just that word is enough to scare people into not going.
Yeah, so they're talking about how there are reports that the U.S. may be heading toward an economic downturn because of all the issues going on with China and all that stuff. China, which is not huge on Mulan either, but that's a whole nother video. They said it could have a disastrous effect not only on Disney World, but the entire tourism industry. Because again, Disney World exploded in the last couple of years because people were feeling good about the economy. As soon as the economy takes a dive, Disney always takes a dive. Disney didn't do anything for years after 9/11. Like, it was just like they didn't do anything because the revenue wasn't coming in. They actually left one of their hotels half finished.
They did. It's creepy. It was the now it's the Art of Animation. But it was supposed to be the other half of the Pop Century, which I'm so bummed they didn't do, because it would have been amazing. Like that, but we stayed at the Pop Century when it went, before they had done anything to the other half. We actually were there when they were building our animation.
Yeah.
But it was really creepy. You look across the water, and there was this abandoned hotel, and it was really creepy looking.
It was overgrown, and like it was creepy. Then they were just like, okay, well, it's like, the money got turned back on, so they were like, let's go back to this and finish it. But then they made it something different. But they said that the way they did in 2008, 2010, which is when we first started taking family trips to Disney, there were a lot of deals, and that's what's kind of going on now too.
That's what I was gonna say. If you want to go to Disney and you're somebody who wants to go and you're saving your money to go, now's the time to start watching, because they're offering deals right and left, and then if next year is taking another dive, they're gonna offer even more deals. So if you're wanting to go and you want to save some money, just keep watching that.
Yeah, keep watching. If you actually have the disposable income, it might actually be a good time to go. So we still have just over a week to go until the opening of Hollywood Studios. It'll be interesting to see how the crowd levels are. We're going to be watching that.
We are going to be watching that.
Disneyland. And then December 5th is when they're going to have Rise of the Resistance. Early December is usually not very busy, but we're hearing that there are going to be budget cuts on Rise of the Resistance. It's not going to quite be the impressive attraction that they promised. Do they think it's going to be a $1 billion blunder? Now, one of the biggest complaints, well, here, I just want to point this out first before we get into that. They're really trying hard to get people there.
Oh, yeah, I heard all that. I heard about this, yeah.
Neil Patrick Harris. Everybody likes Neil Patrick Harris.
I do like Neil Patrick Harris.
I like Neil Patrick Harris.
He might be the new voice of in Spaceship Earth, you said.
That he was one of the rumored voices.
Yeah, I would like that. I like him, so I'm like, yeah, that'd be awesome.
I've heard Neil Patrick Harris for Spaceship Earth, and I've heard Tom Hanks for Carousel of Progress. So,
which that makes sense too.
That makes total
sense.
I think
I can see that.
So anyway, Dreamfinder, the Dreamfinders podcast. This is actually part of WDW News Today.
Oh, is it theirs? I didn't know.
It is, which I did not know, but we actually had a friend of ours, John, point this out yesterday. He wrote me on Facebook and said, he's like, you have to listen to this interview with this Imagineer, J. Daniel Jenkins, former Imagineer. Now, this guy worked...
Oh, he's former? I didn't know he was
former.
done.
That's probably why he's speaking out now. He worked on Toy Story Land. He worked on New Fantasyland. He worked on Galaxy's Edge. And he
has some insight into Guardians of the Galaxy attraction and stuff too, which
you talk about that.
I didn't watch all that part. That's a whole other video.
I'm going to put a link to this podcast in the description. He confirms what a lot of people have suspected, which is the Galaxy's Edge was originally planned to be an original trilogy park. He flat out says it was supposed to be original trilogy, and then Bob Iger threw a wrench into it because he was happy with the money being made off of the new trilogy. Actually, I don't even think Force Awakens came out yet. He was basically seeing the dailies. He's like, this is going to be gold, so let's base it on...
Right, and The Force Awakens was popular because everybody thought they were going to get Luke, Leia, and Han together again, which is what they implied, and they didn't get it. And everybody also... And honestly, let's be honest, it was a ripoff of the original trilogy combined into one movie. So, of course, people liked it. It felt familiar. And then we got The Last Jedi, which we all know how that went. So I actually have the transcript. I've transcribed what was said in the video so we don't get demonetized. So here's what he was saying about it, okay? So the challenges with Star Wars is like many of the IPs that Disney has. You had 40 plus years of pent-up demand and fans that would be expecting this amazing, immersive experience. I remember as a kid playing with Star Wars figures with my brother, and even back then being like, man, how cool would it be to go on the Millennium Falcon? Or how cool would it be to go to Tatooine? Or how cool would it be to go to Endor, etc.? I think we all can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So there was that expectation, which, certainly I would say it's probably equal with the expectations of the guests for Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I would agree. So you have those expectations. You have the physical limitations that we had to deal with. of getting that park ready for such large expansions as Toy Story Land and Star Wars went. And then on top of the storyline and original concept for Star Wars Land, it was not going to be Batuu. It was going to be either one or two of two known planets within the Star Wars ecosphere, if you will. The storylines they had been working on, he's kind of jumping around here. I've been working on. I had been working on Star Wars Land and Toy Story Land simultaneously for a year, so he was working on both those for about a year. And Bob Iger basically said he had seen some of the early dailies from the second sequels, and he said, "No, we've got to use these 3 movies storyline. We're not going to be using the older 6 movies," just because he saw how good they were going to be. I know that's a big debate right now, so as well. So, and then he,
yeah. So he was basically saying, yeah, we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, so Bob Iger came in. They were already planning probably Tatooine, probably Endor, probably maybe something, Coruscant or something familiar. And then,
well, clearly he's an old Star Wars fan,
right,
by the way he talks.
Right.
And they were planning this land based on the 6 movies, he said. So it was original trilogy and the prequels.
Yeah, so I could see Coruscant. I mean, Coruscant would make total sense.
And I'm thinking when they started getting backlash about it, that's why they started putting some of the things they originally planned in. So, you find something from every movie represented somewhere. I think that was what happened. So then he continues and he says, but that was some of the other challenges. You had the physical challenges of just building anything in Florida that weighs over 2 tons. And you had the guest expectations of what it would be like to be in a Star Wars themed land. And of course you had other issues with, well, if it's not going to be Batuu, if we were to do Tatooine, is it really smart to do a desert in Florida? It's already hot enough, so there was a lot of discussion like that. And without revealing too much, do we really want to build a desert in Florida? It would be totally cool, but maybe not the best idea. So those are some of the big factors that guide the evolution of what's being created today.
Yeah, but it could have been,
Endor would have been perfect.
Endor, I actually, you look at it and they've got like a forest section. And then, yeah, they could have been Kashyyyk, could have been Endor. And then they have the desert part, the Black Spire, the town. The town looks like
Mos Eisley.
It does look like Mos Eisley.
It does.
And the ride they originally had, where they had those furry looking, they look like they could have been dewbacks
or banthas. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think it was originally probably designed to be Tatooine and Endor. And that also explains why the Falcon's there, because that was probably, Docking Bay 94.
Right.
And that's where the Falcon was, and then you probably come out of it because the cantina's right next to it.
Yep, you could tell they just rethemed it. They just reskinned it last minute because they decided to go with these movies. Well, not last minute, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, so Bob Iger came in and said, nope, we're going to do it on these movies, even though they're not out yet, even though we don't know if they have any longevity. We're going to, but the flip side is, like we talked about in other videos, they could always go back and revert it very easily to the original trilogy.
Because the video, the Millennium Falcon just changed the video. The place already looks like Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
And then you said there's another section that could be an Endor section. There's another section that could, be easily transformed like Hoth or something.
Yeah.
And the Rise of the Resistance ride.
Death Star.
It's a Death Star.
Yeah.
So just you can theme it to whatever. There's AT-ATs in it. Why would there be at walkers in the new true trilogies? The new sequels. There wouldn't be. So watch the next movie have it in. I think they're going to tie Batuu into the next movie too.
I don't know. But it just feels like this was an overlay. Like, it does feel like they were designing a legitimate original trilogy park, because he brought up, and I did listen to part of the podcast myself, and he talked about Harry Potter, and he said why people loved Harry Potter so much was they could literally walk into the world that they saw on the movie screen. They knew. And they wanted to do that with Star Wars. Instead, they gave them something completely different.
Right. Because, I mean, the safe bet would have been original trilogy, because a lot of people don't like the prequels. A lot of people don't like the sequels. But pretty much everybody likes the original trilogy in some way. So the original trilogy would have been the safest bet to go with. I thought it was also interesting, I didn't transcribe it, but he also talks in this interview about the shift from
was it Tom Staggs to Bob Chapek?
Yeah, he talked about being Tom Staggs to Bob Chapek, and he said the problem that they have, and I think this is key to what we've been talking about with budget cuts and stuff, is that the corporate, and we run into this too when you're a creative person and you work with visualizing things and creating things, and even if you do it freelance for clients, their idea and what they're willing to pay and what you need to do to actually be successful are two different things. And he said basically corporate Disney doesn't understand what it takes to make a successful expansion to the parks, because they want to cut the expense. All they're seeing is the bottom line. Yeah. And they're used to like, oh, we want this done in 2 weeks. It's something that we're going to make copies of. Boom, go, here's a check. And you can't do that with Imagineering. Imagineering takes time, it takes effort, it takes teams of people working together, trying to come up with the best ideas they can, and then how to bring those to life in a way that people are going to believe and people are going to love. Because if you don't have that connection, they're not going to come back.
No, and that's the Disney parks were built on that philosophy, and that's one thing. Just in the last few years, it seems like Disney, they're doing a lot of different projects, but it seems like they're cutting some of the, the budget.
And he didn't come out and say that Chapek was he said that people in Imagineering were concerned when they brought Chapek in. He said that Stags actually got it. They said that you actually knew that he understood what it took, and he was around them enough to know. But he didn't say Chapek didn't. He said people were concerned about that, but he didn't really elaborate any further. So he didn't say whether he did or didn't. He just said people were concerned when he came in.
Chapek doesn't. I have heard from multiple people that he was known for being a notorious penny pincher, and now he's in charge of the parks. And his everybody's pointing at Chapek and saying, even if it was based on the sequel trilogy, Galaxy's Edge could have been a showstopper if they had given it the budget it was supposed to have. If it had the third ride, if the damn thing was done when people were, and they had all the actors,
The thing being done in the extra ride, because basically what it is right now is a ride in a bunch of stores and a cantina with a time limit and a drink limit.
And again, this is long-term strategy versus short-term gains, because the word of mouth at the beginning is bad because they didn't invest in it like they should have, and they did not listen to the Imagineers. Now, Galaxy's Edge is always going to be synonymous with flop, with failure, kind of like Disney California Adventure was at first, where they did it on the cheap, and it cost them in the long run because it took them years and a major retheming to get it to the point where it is now. Same thing's going to happen with Galaxy's Edge, where if you had done it right and maybe taken an extra year or two and themed it to the original trilogy and done all these things that you promised people and done it right, everybody be wowed.
Right, because what they were saying it was going to be for 2 years, when the word we heard from the cast members, we heard from Disney, we're going to do this, and they didn't do half of it.
Yeah, so I think that hotel is going to be a victim of the same cost-cutting measures. We did a previous video on that, and I think that's probably gonna get the axe too, or at least cut back on the promise. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is not a good look when you have your biggest defenders, the friendly media, constantly out there calling out the Galaxy's Edge is a huge flop.
I love it. We called it out too, and we were jerks, and how dare we? And now the big blogs are doing it too. And it's like, it's not just us, Not just us. Not a good look for Disney. They've got some major damage control they're going to have to do. So, okay, we're going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We hit 50,000 last week, and we're hoping for 100,000 by the end of the year. I don't know if it's going to happen, but hopefully it will. Yep. All right, so we'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.